Hi you guys. Okay, where we left off was that in my mess, in my confusion and everything, God broke through and spoke to me and said, you can follow me now or you can pursue your own dreams, but one day you're going to be a missionary. And at that time in my life, I knew I did not want God. So I put him aside and I started to pursue my own dreams. Well, what were my dreams? To tell you my dreams, I've got to go back. I've got to rewind my life back to my childhood. Because remember, now I'm no longer wanting to be in a mental hospital. Now I'm pursuing other things. Okay, so in my childhood, I lived in LA between the ages of 2.5 and 8.5. And my parents sent me to a school. Even though my dad worked in a factory, somehow they were able to send me to a school where all the movie star kids went. And so at that time there was a man. There's something on that thing. Oh, it went away. Okay, sorry. On the camera, there's some writing here, Jose. What is it? It's just numbers. I think it's okay. Sorry. Okay. Anyway. So my dad worked in a factory, but I went to school with the children of movie stars. And back in those days, they were the old stars like you probably never ever heard of. Pat Boone. Well, you have heard of Jamie Lee Curtis. I went to school with her and with her, but her sister was my age, Kelly Curtis, and other ones. But anyway, Debbie Boone, who later on became famous for You Light Up My Life. Anyway, for a time, she was my good friend. And I would go to her house and everything. Well, anyway, what happened was then when I was 9.5, my dreams kind of burst and we moved to Florida, and from that time on my life kind of spun downhill. But deep in my heart, I always had a feeling, I don't know why, I always had a kind of like a weird thoughts that if I knew movie stars, that would make me truly happy. And I didn't think I had any talent, although I kind of wanted myself to have talent, so that's when I made I tried to get into show business and stuff like that, and that didn't work out, and I thought I had no talent and all that kind of stuff. So now my thing was just to be a parasite to movie stars. That was my goal in life. And so what happened was, during the time I was in boarding school, my dad started to be on the campaign trail for a man named Hubert Humphrey. You've probably never heard of him. He ran against Nixon, who maybe you have heard of. But anyway, and he lost. But anyway, my dad was on the campaign trail, and his job was to take care of a famous couple. The man was, you probably never heard of this show, Bonanza. He played the dad in Bonanza. His name was Lorne Greene. And then he was also in the first Battlestar Galactica. Okay. Anyway, so during the time I was in boarding school, my dad started to know them, and they became good friends. So then when when I was 19, we moved out to Lake Tahoe in Nevada. And Lorne Greene and his family came to visit us. Well, they had a little 9-year-old daughter named, I won't tell her name because I don't want to. Anyway, a little 9-year-old daughter who I decided that my way into their family was through this kid. So I was 19, she was 9, but I was so manipulative that I determined that I was going to become like a family member by just doing anything the child wanted and making her love me so much that she always wanted to have me around. So that's exactly what I did. Okay, so one day Meanwhile, let me tell you the other side of the coin. So whenever they would come to town, because they had 2 houses now, they got a house in Lake Tahoe near us, but then they also had their home in California. Whenever they would come to town, I would be like, whatever she wanted to do, I was full of energy and just fun and all of this kind of stuff. And then because of that, I got to sleep at their house. I got to go to tennis tournaments, you know, celebrity tennis tournaments and all this kind of stuff. And I was becoming like on the peripheral of all this stardom. Okay. But the other side of the coin was that my life was a mess. And I now lived in a little apartment by myself down in Reno, which is just a 45-minute drive from Lake Tahoe. And I had this little apartment, and I lived off of a little trust fund, and I was supposed to be going to business school every day, and I never would go. I never would go. My life consisted of bulimia. That was it. I would wake up in the morning, 10 o'clock, and I would drag myself out to the couch, and I would just lay there watching TV until I saw enough commercials to want to make me hungry for food. And then I would get myself a large pizza or and a large ice cream, and I would, you know, go through the process. And then later on I would be hungry again, and I would make myself a whole hamburger helper and then have some other kind of dessert, and I would go through the process again. I would do it 3 or 4 times a day. And you know, that can kill you. That is a mess. My teeth started, you know, your teeth can rot from that, everything. And I started to get terrible indigestion because of it, but that was my life. And I would spend hours weeping on the floor. Not hours, but afterwards I would just weep on the floor, feeling so lost and so messed up, and just like, and then here I was on the one hand having all of this thing with when the stars came to town, but on the other hand I would be like a hermit, and I would have hardly enough. I would be so insecure and thinking that I was so messed up that I would be scared to go to the grocery store, because I would think that everybody was looking at me, pointing and knowing what I had done. And I know, I was paranoid, I was messed up, and I was also using drugs again, and it was a mess. Okay. So that's where I was. One day, when I was, how old was I? I had just turned 22. This little girl, who now was almost 12, she was 11. She called me up because she was also starstruck in her own little way, and she loved when she got to meet people and stuff like that. So she called me up, and she knew I was starstruck, and her dad was now working in Battlestar Galactica, and she called me up and she said, "We're gonna have some Hollywood parties. Why don't you just fly on down and come to them?" And you know, I thought, what else do I have to live for? So I just took money out of the bank, and I flew down, and at the first party, here I was in my dream come true. Remember I told you God said pursue your own dreams, but one day you're going to be a missionary? I was in my dream come true. I was at this Hollywood party, and there was stars all around me. And you know what? I never felt emptier in my life. I felt so empty. The next party, it was even more. It was back in the days when they were filming Happy Days, and there were stars from Happy Days there. There was just, here I was in my dream come true. I was associating with all these people, and just, but it was so empty. Well, at that party, there was a young actor. I've never heard his name since, so I don't think that he went anywhere with it, but there was a young actor who, I won't say his name because we shouldn't do that, but he had just become a born-again Christian 3 months previously. And so he got a hold of me and started just to tell me everything about it, not knowing that 4 years previously I had hung around all these Christians, right? And so I was here listening to all this. I didn't even respond to him. I didn't say anything to him. I just listened. But in my heart, something was happening, and I just knew. I knew that what I needed to fill me was Jesus. I knew when he was talking, it became so real to me, so real. So what happened was, on the plane ride home, it's like I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop crying. And this song, I had this album from Debbie Boone, the one that made You Light Up My Life. And on this album, there was this Christian song, but I didn't know it was a Christian, but I had listened to that album so much. And on this song, it was a Christian song from a man named Keith Green. But as I said, I didn't know it was he was a Christian or anything. Anyway, just in case I forget the words, I'm going to sing it to you because this went over and over in my head. And tears were streaming down my face on the airplane because I was having a real love experience with God. He was breaking through to me. And I hope I don't cry. Like a foolish dreamer trying to build a highway to the sky, all my hopes would come tumbling down, and I never knew just why. Until today, when you pulled away the clouds that hung like curtains on my eyes. Well, I've been blind all these wasted years, and I thought I was so wise. But then you took me by surprise, like waking up from the longest dream. How real it seemed until your love broke through. I've been lost in a fantasy that blinded me until your love broke through. And I was just weeping and weeping because something real was happening in my heart. Sorry, ugly cry like Oprah says. Anyway, that's where my life started to change. So I'll tell you what happened, because the excitement was just about to begin, because I'm telling you, I've had more adventures than you could ever imagine. My life continued to be dramatic, but in a different way. Okay, I love you guys. Dream big and go for it.